apologize in advance. I'm making this video in the same night as the last one, and so I still got that going on. So again, I apologize. But I want to talk today about why people cheat. If you haven't watched the last video, you might want to watch it. It's going to be a little bit repetitive possibly because I'm really honing in on this specific issue in this specific video. But there's going to also be more information too. So there you go. So you guys may know of the 5 love languages, right? Gifts, words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, physical touch. You know, all these things, they're totally true and can cause somebody to cheat. But there's other reasons that can cause somebody to cheat as well. And this is stuff that is more like, I'm going to change for myself, you know, the deep stuff. One reason why people cheat is because they or the other person just aren't themselves from the beginning. Ooh. Gotta bite my tongue every time I see stuff like this. There's advice out there that basically says play games with somebody that you're trying to attract. They basically say just don't be yourself. You know, if you want a guy's attention, just ignore him. And the person's probably gonna get ignored back and be like, what? Why is he ignoring me? Why isn't he chasing me? Well, girl, guess what? I'm not going to go into that. But the advice tells everybody to go ahead and play a game. Put on that mask, you know. Don't be yourself. I hope you all love my wonderful illustration, my wonderful drawing. But we hide it. We put on our best self. And we do that until we feel comfortable in the relationship. But that's when things tend to change. Because this is when somebody stops being themselves. This mask, guess what happens to it? It goes from being on to being off. Screw you, mask. This is when friction can occur because, just case in point, you just weren't yourselves to begin with. And depending on how long the relationship has been and why you're in that relationship, you know, it sucks to break up and start over. People are also in relationships for financial reasons and whatever other reason. And so when the clash in personalities, when your true selves start to come out, it causes friction, and then it'll cause somebody to potentially cheat. It's another reason why people will cheat, because you're just not it's simple. You or probably both of you just weren't your true selves from the beginning. If you want somebody to love you, why don't you just be yourself? And I'm not talking about just like, you know, ripping up the curtain completely right away and just kind of being obnoxious. I mean, that's it too, then just you do you, boo-boo. But I'm just saying we put up a front. We put on that mask in front of other people, and when that mask is torn away, then friction. It's a personality clash. And now you don't want to break up because you've been together for 2 years. So now you decide just to cheat. Another reason, like I said before, in my last video, wounds and self-sabotage. I will link that video at the end if you have not seen it, so make sure you check it out. But that's also another reason why people cheat too. And in this video's example, I'm going to talk more about abandonment issues. So if we have a thought process and the past wound of abandonment shows up, this abandonment is going to show up, the abandonment wound is going to show up in this relationship and cause friction. It's really tough to explain how this works. So one person this wound is projected by them running from stuff. And the other person, the wound is more clinginess. So you have the same abandonment wound, but it's being displayed in different ways. And people with the same kinds of issues tend to attract each other. So it really depends on how this wound is being displayed outwardly. So one person is too clingy, one person is just like, get out, like pushes people away. And it clashes. So this is, again, it's really hard to explain. So there's people that want somebody that isn't clingy, but they always find themselves in clingy relationships. And these are the relationships that tend to be longer or more successful, and I say that lightly, because the other person at this point could likely have a thought process of clinginess equals love. I'll get into it. Let me just explain it overall first, and then I'll kind of break it down. So I want somebody that is not clingy, but I always, the only people that I find myself finding is clingy people, and it works it works, but I still don't like the clinginess, and that clinginess leads me to cheating. When they find somebody that is not clingy, their wound is going to get triggered, and because they're the one that runs away, they're going to run away because they're going to think the other person doesn't care about them because now they're not being clingy, and now I think clinginess equals love, so I'm going to run here, and then that person already runs away as how their abandonment wound is expressed. So now you have two people that are running away, and that doesn't work either. So there's a couple things that are going on within the person. The thought process of I always attract clingy, that surface thought, an unconscious abandonment wound that says people always leave me. I guess that can be conscious or unconscious. And an unconscious belief of clinginess equals love. Essentially, if they're not clingy, or the other person's abandonment issue is causing them to act more distant, push away, they'll think the other person doesn't love them. So this is why their successful relationships are always with the clingy person, and the ones that aren't are with the people that aren't this way. They will run from a relationship with somebody that is not clingy because they won't think that that person wants to be with them because their abandonment issues getting triggered. On both ends, it's the abandonment wound that's being triggered, but it's being displayed in different ways. I hope you guys get what I'm trying to say with that. And each person's past is showing up. But because the person doesn't want clingy, but the only relationships that they find that are successful, it's the only relationships that they allow themselves to experience, you get cheating because they're not happy in their current relationship. Another reason why people cheat is because of the 5 love languages. But here's the kicker. Someone needs to first give themselves what they seek before expecting the other person to give it to them. So if somebody's love language is words of affirmation, I would put money down that I would put money down that this person has low self-esteem and low self-worth. And they rely on somebody else or something from the external realm to fulfill that lack inside. So when one person isn't giving themselves words of affirmation, they expect the other person to. And the other person essentially becomes their sense of self-worth. And it's codependency. But what if the words of affirmation were part of that person, the other person's mask? So what happens when the person stops doing it? What happens when the person stops telling the other person how wonderful and beautiful and amazing they are? Guess what's going to happen to that other person's self-esteem and sense of self-worth? Where did it go? It's gone. Now guess what they're going to do? You're not giving them their sense of self anymore. Now guess what they're going to do? They're going to go look elsewhere for that sweet, sweet sense of self and cheat. Because they're not getting it from the other person. So if I'm not telling myself that I'm wonderful, beautiful, and amazing and that I love myself, I'm going to seek it out in another person, expect the other person to give it to me, and when that when that stops happening, when the other person stops giving that person that sense of self, it's like an animal that needs to eat. It's like, I gotta find those words. I got self-esteem. Where's it? You got any self-esteem? You guys know that meme? What's that guy's name? Oh God, I can't think of his name. I'm gonna snag myself over that. You couldn't think of that guy? He had that show on Comedy Central. He's a comedian. Anyways, yeah, he's funny. Got any more of that self-esteem, guys? You know what I mean? So they're going to go elsewhere for their self-esteem. And that's why they cheat. So whatever your love language is, make sure that you are first giving it to yourself before expecting the other person to give it to you. Yeah. I did read that book. It's a good book. However, in the context, I personally believe that if you change yourself, none of it really matters, because it's like, okay, I understand that this person doesn't feel like I love them because I'm not doing this for them. But it's kind of like the way that I see it and the way that a relationship could be totally successful is that that person has an understanding that they need to give that to themselves too first, not just rely on the other person to do something or to change or to keep on doing something. I don't know. Maybe they did mention it in the book. I don't remember. It was like 6 years ago when I read it. We need to love ourselves before we can fully really love another. That's all I got for you guys today. Again, I am a certified life, relationship, and spiritual coach. I do free 30, I don't know if that's going to show up right, 30-minute sessions. If you want to upgrade to a full session, you can do so for 50% off. I also coach soul connections like twin flames and soulmates. My contact information, oh, my throat is getting so dry. My contact information is in the description, and there's other links too. I do have a blog with tons more stuff on it. I also have my Facebook page, and I got a Twitter, but I don't really know about how to use the tweeter. I don't really use the tweeter that much. But I do have 2 Facebook pages. I have a Facebook group, so check the links out because I do have the socials as well if you want to get in touch with me. And my website too, and my email address is on there as well. Until next time.